I got to tell you, when I watch, thank you, Stanton, producer Stanton, for A, posting thank you for watching tonight, and B, reminding me that people have to hit the bell. You can't just subscribe. You gotta tap like and hit the bell, or once you tap the like and once you hit the bell, then we know that you're really in the Honeycomb Hideout, that you're not just a passive sub. Doesn't that sound sexual? A passive sub, like an aggressive bottom. Are you guys surprised I even know what that is? Anyway, I don't even. That's funny. Stanton put the funny guy for. Yeah, I don't even know. I can't believe we're off to the races. That we just started the show, and I've already said all manner of messy things. If you hear talking in the background, I am indeed at my mother's. I drove her home after nearly 3 weeks at my house, recovering from hip replacement. Yeah, Tom Wilson needs some Monique, and I need some Tom Wilson. As I was about to say, I've been at my home with my mother. Tomorrow will be 3 weeks. We left a couple of days after Christmas, and I drove her down to SF, the Honeycomb Hideout. That's right, to take care of her and her post. Took her for walks and made sure that she was recovering nicely from her hip replacement surgery, full hip replacement surgery. And the one thing I will tell you about COVID, which is bittersweet, but mostly sweet, I miss working terribly. I miss being in front of crowds. I miss not getting on planes and not being at clubs. I've played one real club in Colorado Springs. I drove all the way there, and it was social distance. It was careful. But since last March, Friday the 13th, to be exact, I have done 4 shows in front of, regular people in a comedy club. I did some shows in Alameda, here in Northern California outside. It was very cold. And I'm actually signed up to do Valentine's again. So February out in California outside in Northern California is going to be pretty chilly. But the sweet part, when I say bittersweet, the sweet part is I've made 6 trips to San Francisco since May. 6. I was here for my mother's retirement. My mom worked full time until she was 78 years old. I was here for my mother's retirement. I was here for my niece's 2nd birthday. I was here for Christmas. I was here for Thanksgiving. I was here for my mother's surgery. And there's something about home and hearth and coming together. I used to book myself on cruises or in comedy clubs during the holidays specifically to not have to, deal with family. I had an excuse, like being in retail, like, hey, holidays are when I can make the most money being on ships and whatnot. They always zhuzh you, pay a little extra, bonus you, whatever, if you're willing to work holidays. So I have spent many Christmases away from home, many Thanksgivings away from home these last 27 years since I quit my day job. Almost every New Year's, certainly every Valentine's. So here I am, spending an enormous amount of time with my family. And there has been a thank you for all the kind things that you're posting. There has been I don't want to say healing. That's a strong word. It implies a rift. It implies an injury. There has been a bonding on another level that I lacked, that is extremely satisfying. It's extremely satisfying to see my little niece come screaming across the floor with her arms out when I visit. I am a part of her life. She knows me. She knows Auntie Monique. She knows who I am in her heart at 2 years old and gets bananas when she sees me. My nieces, my teenage nieces, I feel like I've had an influence on them over this weird time where one niece was supposed to go away to college and stay at a dorm, and that was an enormous disappointment. And me spending time with her has been able to sort of fix that in some ways. And obviously, my mom and I, at other times in my life, were never this close. And we are quite close, and we enjoy each other quite a bit. In fact, this week, and I'm putting, some of you saw this on social media, on my social media. We watched the documentary, the Bee Gees documentary, How Do You Mend a Broken Heart? And it is extraordinary. It's breathtaking. I don't want to say too much about it, except it has a little bit of everything. It has family, it has unity, it has music, it has artistry, it has determination, it has grit, it has loss, it has pain, it has alienation, it has competition, good and bad. It's a, you don't have to like the Bee Gees music to enjoy the documentary, but I can't even imagine any human being with ears that wouldn't like the Bee Gees music. It's pretty it's pretty extreme. And listening to Saturday Night Fever, which came out in 1977, it was an unbelievable. I mean, I looked it up. It is still the third largest selling soundtrack of any movie ever. Number two, I believe, was The Bodyguard. I forget number one, but it's Saturday Night Fever. After 40 years, is still number three. It was number one for many, many years. And the music, you should be dancing, Night Fever. What I want to share about that was that was a high point in my mom's life when she was partying. I have a bit in my act where I say every woman has a slut summer. You know, usually it's after a breakup or a divorce or whatever. They have all kinds of little niche words now where people get revenge bodies or whatever. I mean, it's the same sentiment. But before social media, and there was, you know, the whole idea of, you know, a slut summer, which is kind of a lost thing. Like you just kind of go, like, I guess for some people now, like a slut summer is like every day. But, you know, my slut summer was, you know, the summer of 86. I could lie to you, but what's the point? My mother's was 10 years before. We are exactly 20 years apart, but as every generation does everything differently, I was much younger when I got divorced the first time, and I didn't have kids, and I still don't. So we both could very strongly identify with the whole, you know, club culture and disco and dancing, and it was a really nice watching that with her. And I recommend that everybody watch it. But there was something very carefree and inclusive in the culture of dance, of disco. I know producer Stanton probably won't want me to let you know this about him, but he is a DJ, and it, you know, like a wiki wiki wiki, and also producer Stanton break dances. he does. I think, in fact, he even had this certain kit that he bought that actually came with the cardboard. I remember him telling me the story on our way to Hermosa Comedy Club, and I don't remember if it was the guy from, you know, that does the Carl. I don't know where he got the breakdancer kit, but when he actually told me that it came with a folding piece of cardboard for your breakdancing pleasure, I was like, wow. Because producer Stanton is not only Caucasian, he's white, like white, but he's from Louisiana. So he's going to have that soul in him. He's got, oh no. Oh yeah. Oh yes. He has gone into the Wayback Machine and found, oh my goodness, this is too good. This is really good. Moonwalking. Okay, King. Oh yeah, this is good stuff right here. Oh my God, Alfonso's breaking and popping. All right, there you have it, guys. For those of you who, you know, maybe you can find it on eBay. Maybe, you know, Amazon has some used copies of Alfonso's breaking and popping. Oh my God, the windmill, advanced wind. That's probably good exercise. You know, as long as we're all on lockdown and we're learning new skills, screw sourdough bread. Get Alfonso's breaking and popping. I think we should revisit competitive breakdancing. I think some of us should master the windmill during our free time during COVID. I think that could be good for you. It'll probably be good for the chiropractors, that's for sure. So, you know, getting back to the culture of dance, one of the things that came out was that this very mean-spirited, and I remember this, but I didn't really get it. Um, and I'm going to tell you a little a sidebar in the documentary was the backlash of disco. That then it became this big, disco sucks, and this guy held this big giant disco sucks rally, a DJ that was on the loop. Uh, your standard fat white guy started a whole disco sucks, and we're going to burn disco records. And here's the funny thing, and it was a book burning because it wasn't even disco. Like any artist that was, I don't want to say too much. You'll if you watch the doc, you'll see it. But here's, why would you come out and say disco sucks? Like, what could possibly suck about dancing? What could possibly suck about rhythmic music? What could possibly suck about having a reason to dress up or put on cologne or meet with your friends? Something inclusive. What could possibly suck about that other than people's own feeling of being left out because they just wouldn't go with literally the rhythm and the flow? Yeah, like I'm not one of those people that, mastered a lot of the twirls and dips and all of that. But I've, to this day, and history is on the side of art. History is always going to fall on the side of art. It's always going to fall with the Bee Gees. Nobody knows that DJ's name anymore, and they tore up Wrigley Field, and the second game of a doubleheader had to be canceled. So who really sucks? Who really sucked? The guy that started trouble and people were tearing the stadium apart and taking seats home, and a game had to be canceled? Who really sucked? That guy whose name we don't remember, who burned a bunch of good records? Or, disco? Really think about when you hear in your mind, you should be dancing. Do you smile? It would be nearly impossible not to. You would have to have some genetic mutation that would keep you from enjoying something as fabulous as you should be dancing, or night fever. What you doing in your bed? Come on. How can you resist that? How can you resist the light up floor? You can resist it if you just have exclusion and hate in your heart, if you just don't want to have fun. And I understand that. I get it. I get that if you're the guy that you don't think anybody wants to dance with, you want to make sure nobody else gets to dance. And there's always going to be those people. But I'm monumentally grateful that they're always in a tiny, vocal, idiotic minority. Yes, it is vocal. Yes, it can be violent, as it turned when they, tore up Wrigley Field after the Disco Sucks album burning. But that's one group of people. Disco lives on cruise ships. Every cruise ship I've ever been on, whether it's Carnival or Royal Caribbean, guess what? They have a 70s night, and they play disco. And it's the night where everybody on the ship is on the promenade having fun. It's everyone's favorite night. YMCA, Last Dance, thank God it's Friday. They're there. And they live on, and they're part of our culture, and they bring us joy. And it reminded me, when I watched the Bee Gees documentary, of what lasts. When I was in an enormous amount of emotional and spiritual discomfort many years ago, and something happened to me of my own doing, to be clear, I would listen to Neil Diamond's Hot August Night. There is nothing better than Neil Diamond live at the Greek Theater. Do yourself a favor and listen to Hot August Night. It's on YouTube. You don't have to download the album if you're not sure. But if you hear I Am, I Said, or Suleiman, or Crunchy Granola Sweet, you know, and you don't, and maybe you're young and maybe this doesn't resonate, and I'm grateful that I have very young fans. But when you play it at 22 years old, you're going to be like, no wonder they talk about Neil Diamond so much in Saving Sarah Marshall. No wonder he's still part of our culture. No wonder he's still relevant, because he's Neil Diamond. Just like Tom Jones is Tom Jones. At the Queen's 90th birthday, who was standing behind Queen Elizabeth on her 90th birthday? Tom Jones. Somebody just typed, pack up the babies and grab the old ladies. That's right. Brother Loves Travel and Salvation show. Doesn't get any better. That a poor Welsh miner could end up standing behind the Queen of England on her 90th birthday tells you the power of music and dance and inclusion, and in his case, extremely tight pants and perfect hip thrusts. If you ever are in a terrible mood and you just want to get out of it fast, do yourself a favor and go to YouTube and look up Tom Jones Dances Like Hell. If that video doesn't take you, and it takes a minute, it starts off slow. He's just singing. It looks pretty normal. But then he launches. And when Tom Jones launches in Tom Jones Dances Like Hell, you're going to be in heaven. You just can't fight it. And I'm saying these things, obviously, I have the best fans. I know who you are. And I know that some of you are so many of you are across a spectrum of beliefs, of ideologies, of practices, really the spectrum. And one of the things that I really love about you guys is how respectful you are of each other in the community of Monique Marvez and the 330. I know that a lot of you maybe lean towards a more conservative way of life and you chose things in a different manner. And I get that. And it's okay. And it doesn't mean anything. The events of the last few weeks are not a reflection of people's good intentions or beliefs or ideology. It really isn't. You've always got that handful of people, that vocal minority that tries to pretend that the vast majority of good, decent, loving, dancing cruise ship, that those people, don't know good enough. You're not smart enough to make your own decision. We're going to make it for you. And as a nation, we start to lose perspective and decency when we lose faith, when we stop really knowing how good we really are, how many great things we're really capable, that left to our own devices, we're going to do good things. And when a handful of people forget that we're not lemmings and sheeps and dummies that have to be talked down to or have information hidden from or whatever, I'll never do that. I promise you, as long as you come to me in search of entertainment or a different way of looking at the world or just a joke, just something to lift your spirit, I'm never going to dummy it down. I'm never going to use subterfuge. I'm never going to talk to you in a way that reflects that I don't think you know exactly what I'm talking about and what I mean at the highest intellectual and spiritual level. I have faith in you. I know you hear me. I know you hear me like a dog whistle. I do. And it brings me enormous comfort and joy to see how we, our community, our tribe, your vibe creates your tribe, how within our tribe we have left wing, right wing, conservative, financially conservative, socially liberal. We have, people that are in the military that are homosexual. I have lots of people that are in the military that are gay. I have friends in San Diego. I have every stripe of person within our group. Some of you have found each other out and sought each other out specifically because your views are closer than maybe somebody else in the tribe, but you're still all part of the tribe. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about, how it really is about inclusion and fun. Nothing sucks about fun. Nothing sucks about positivity. Nothing sucks about moving forward. Nothing sucks about breaking and popping. I mean, I can't do it because the injuries would suck. But, that's neither here nor there. I'm not going to do it. But at some point, I will have another disco dance party. The 3:30, we had two. And, that whole arm thing, I do that a little bit. And definitely, shake your groove thing. I'll do that a lot. I mean, when I get going, I get down. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Elon Musk because producer Stanton loves him. And I read an article this week that he's on track. This is a crazy article. He's on track to become a billionaire. I mean, he's already a billionaire. He's the richest man on earth, a trillionaire. Now, they say that in today dollars, that John D. Rockefeller would have been a trillionaire. If you compared those dollars to today dollars, that Rockefeller was a trillionaire. But he really wasn't a trillionaire because that wasn't how it was working back then. But Elon Musk is a trillionaire, and that kind of blows my mind. I have a nice little feel-good story here, and I'm going to talk about why Elon Musk is a trillionaire. It's pretty. It is on to 1 million. Yeah, why he's in line to be. 200 people who were treated for cancer at a Pine Bluff, Arkansas clinic opened a holiday card to find out they had their medical bills forgiven on Christmas Day. Can you imagine? About $650,000 in all. Dr. Omar Atiq, the oncologist who founded the Cancer Center in 1991 and closed it in early 2020, said he decided to clear the debt after watching his patients struggle to make payments just as the coronavirus began to unfold. So here's a doctor who not only closed his clinic, but upon closing his clinic, looked at all of the options and thought that the best course of action was to just dismiss all of his accounts receivable. Now, I talked about this on New Year's, declaring emotional bankruptcy. Like anybody you think wronged you or hurt you, just write it off, start over. This guy did it. He did it financially. He wrote off $650,000 worth of debt and did it with goodwill. With goodwill. He wasn't forced to. He did it from his heart, and he did it on Christmas so that people opening their bills could say, hey, for them to have this additional burden, it occurred to us that we were blessed to be able to do this. He made the announcement in holiday cards mailed to his patients in December. And he's only 60 years old. He had plenty of time to collect. But how great is that story? Now, in the Department of Life is Cumulative, anybody who knew me from my KFI days knows that one of my cause celeb stories that I just wouldn't leave alone was the murder and torture of Gabriel Fernandez, which now has become a documentary. And see, life is cumulative because of the fact that we have become so much more aware of our surroundings, that a little boy was saved when, this is the most beautiful, it was torture. Alert restaurant manager uses concealed sign to help rescue abused boy in Orlando, Florida. The manager of a restaurant noticed that a boy who was seated there on New Year's Day had bruises on his face and arms. Police said the man at the table didn't let the boy order any food. So Flavane Carvalho decided to step in. She wrote a note that said, "Do you need help? Okay," and held it up so the boy could see it, but not his parents. At first, the boy nodded no, but she wasn't having it. She didn't give up. She could see in plain sight that this child was unwell, and they had withheld food from him in the past as a form of punishment. A couple of minutes later, she says, I wrote another sign asking him if he needs help. And this is when he nodded yes. So then she went back, told her manager of the restaurant. They called the police. The police came in. The child he was covered in bruises and varying degrees of healing. He was clearly malnourished. There was another child at the table that hadn't been abused. And first they arrested the father. Then they didn't have enough evidence to prove that the mother had been complicit. But upon questioning, they arrested the mother, and it was a stepfather. That I'm not even going to go into that. It was a stepfather, a mother, and they took the other child away. How great is that story? That somebody didn't turn a blind eye. And even when the child nodded no, she just stayed. She just wouldn't leave it alone. She stayed on it until he had the courage to say, yes, I am being tortured. That is one of my favorite stories of last week. And now I'm going to give you the Elon Musk one, because producer Stanton I'm going to tell you right now, he has a bromance. He has a bromance with with Elon Musk. He does. He's always talking about him. But here's what's really funny. When I forwarded myself the article, I can just sum it up for you. The article was very long and very interesting. And here it is, the headline. The reason why Elon Musk is on track to become a trillionaire is because he is in alignment with what's going on Earth in the biggest possible way, which is climate control and climate, getting to the point of helping the climate and controlling the problems that we have within, people saying, oh, we don't have these problems, this isn't real, blah, 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 blah. Like, come on, for reals. So the fact that he has started Tesla, but Tesla has so many other offshoots, and I don't know why the article isn't, hang on, I'm going to try and pull up the article specifically, because it goes on and on about how with SpaceX and everything he's doing basically supports getting in alignment with making things better for the economy, for the planet. And when you're in alignment with the bigger picture, with the bigger play, then you're going to get the most rewards. When you go, it's literally when you go with the flow, when you're doing what needs to be done, when you're not denying that it needs to be done, even if it's a tough thing. He ponied up his own money. A lot of people don't know he created PayPal. Elon Musk has gained and lost like 3 or 4 fortunes. He almost lost Tesla at the beginning. And then he didn't. And the stock split. So he's making the right moves. He's realizing that climate change can be climate change for the good and not climate change for the bad. And then I went on, because I go down this rabbit hole, and then I found an article in Inc. that says Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Einstein, and a neuropsychologist all agree this is the secret to having an exceptional memory. Now, before I tell you what the article is about, I'm here to tell you that I don't have like a Mary Lou Henner memory, but those of you who know me, who've listened to my show, some of you are my personal friends, I am blessed with a very, very good memory. Dare I say exceptional. I have a very good memory. In the 3 weeks that my mother and I were hanging out, in fact, there were some challenges, because she would say, this happened, blah, blah, blah. And I would say, no, that was May 12, 1972. And I know moving days. I know first day of school. I can tell you what I wore the first day of school of second grade at Scott Lake Elementary School. In fact, if I close my eyes, I can picture it laid out on a rocker that is in this house right now that my niece loves. It was my rocking chair that my grandfather gave me over 50 years ago. And it was a plaid skirt that was predominantly red and a white, beautiful little blouse that had puff sleeves with lace trim and pearl buttons. It was almost a church blouse, almost. And I couldn't wait till the first day of school so that I could wear that skirt and that blouse in that combination. And I sat next to a girl my first day of second grade at Scott Lake Elementary. And the reason I remember it was because first grade I went to Catholic school and I had to wear a uniform. So the idea of going to a secular school, a public school, and being able to wear whatever I wanted every day was extremely exciting. And I sat next to a girl who was partially Native American, and her name was Lucille Chahaki. She was part Chickasaw. In Miami, mostly you had Seminoles, but she had moved here from somewhere else. And I found her very interesting, Lucille Chahaki. So anyway, I have a good memory. And to go on, in this article, they talk about if you want to become one of those lucky people who soaks in new information like a sponge and never forgets an important detail, then the internet is chock full of tips. But here's how you keep the information in your head. Memories need something to stick to. So as a Norwegian psychologist did this whole thing, studies and etc. And like I say, when I do these things, I cut to the chase because people have asked me, how is it that you have a good memory? Well, number one, I'm in the moment. Like right this minute, I'm with you. I'm not thinking about the drive home tomorrow. I'm not thinking about, I am 100% present with you. And I will remember the comments that are popping up on the screen. I'll remember that producer Stanton used a really nice color pink font. In fact, as I'm looking at it, I'm remembering to tell you guys to tap like and so that, and the bell so that you'll get, see, I remembered that. Tap likes. I like that color pink, producer Stanton. That being said, it's very, what the article says is that it has to do with passion. I am a very passionate person. I'm very invested in what I do. If I'm not invested, I don't do it. And the vast majority of the time, I'm a little bit like a dude. I don't care. Like, I don't care what's going on. When people talk about this and that, I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm ignorant. I mean, very much one of my answers that I have two standard answers that I give people all the time. Number one is, that's above my pay grade. That means I'm not going to try and figure that out. There's a whole lot of things there's all kinds of scientific studies and things that I'm interested in, but I just pull out what my brain needs in order to get the gist of it. I don't have to know the details. I want the gist, the broad strokes and understanding. So number one, I say it's above my pay grade. And number two, and this is my favorite answer because I think it sounds very elegant. Maybe it's because I binge watched The Crown last week. And this week we're doing Downton Abbey. I like to say very politely, I can't speak to that. And then I will add at times, I can't speak to that. I wasn't there. So there's a whole lot of things that I really don't have in my brain. Somebody just posted something nice. Thank you. And by the way, when people say, I'm sorry I missed you, or I'm sorry I'm late, or I finally got here, the beauty of both Facebook Live and YouTube is they live in perpetuity. You're never late. You got here when you got here. You arrived at the content at the exact moment you needed to arrive at the content. So, when I say I can't speak to that, or I can't speak to that, I wasn't there. Here's the thing. I'm not the smartest person, but I don't speak if I don't know. If I'm telling you something, it's because I read it in a vetted source, that I was interested in it, that it mattered to me, and I'm pretty well versed in it. If I don't know, I won't speak. Or if you ask me, I'll specifically say, I don't know. So when I know something, it matters to me. And that's what this article talked about, was that, and I love this. It says, some of the smartest minds in business already understand this truth, not just when it comes to names, but in regards to all kinds of learning. Meaning, when somebody talks to you and you're in the moment, you're going to remember their name because you were present. You weren't thinking about what you were going to say back to them. But it says, passion supercharges your memory. When you are excited about something, as I like to say, firing on all your pistons, you're much more likely to remember. That's why some people have pockets of good memory, like they know stats of baseball, or they know football plays or players and their numbers, because they're passionate. Passion supercharges your memory. If you're very invested in a topic, very invested, you're going to remember. So the key to having a good memory is to very much try and be excited about what you're doing, or only do things you're excited about, which is a huge luxury. Most of us don't have that luxury. There's some things we have to do we're not that excited about, which means stay in the moment and be focused on it. But they have proven, because there's different sort of pistons your brain fires on, that when it says, all this advice points in the same direction. The more meaningful information is to you, the faster you'll remember it. It's just that simple. So you have to convince your unconscious when you're studying something that you need to learn for a test that it matters. And maybe it's the bigger picture play. I want to do very well at this test because I want to get good grades and graduate and become a doctor that can discharge $650,000 worth of medical bills. Or maybe if I learn about, astrophysics, I can, fill in the blank, get a job working for Elon Musk. If you look at the bigger picture importance of why something is in your memory banks and attach an importance to it, that's going to help. I'm blessed with the fact that when I started comedy, I always used to stand in the back of the comedy club when I was an open micer. And I think people thought that I was just doing it to be nice and be an usher. I wasn't passing out coupons or anything. So I used to, always thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. And even when I was an open micer, people would say, you were very funny, or you show a lot of promise. People said nice things, but I didn't stand in the back of the room to, glean compliments, although that was nice. I did it because I enjoyed it, because I could, because it was a pleasure to be a comedian and to be part of that camaraderie. Again, the inclusion, like dancing. Comedy's like dancing. Who doesn't like to laugh? So I'd love to stand in the back and be with the other comics and be part of that camaraderie. And Lenny Clark, who's a wonderful comic and old school Boston guy who ended up on the show Rescue Me with Dennis Leary, like great guy, Lenny. And this was like, I'm going to tell you, 1990, early 93, late 92. He said, you'll get tired of this. Eventually, you'll just hide in the green room till everybody's gone. And I said, when I get tired of it, when I'm not excited about it, I'll do something else. I'll go back into retail or something, be a makeup artist or a kindergarten teacher. And here I am, these 28 years later, and I'm still excited. I haven't lost any of it. I haven't lost an ounce of enthusiasm for any part of what I do. And that's why I remember things, because I'm invested. So there you have it. Elon Musk is passionate about, whatever his motivation, even if it's just because he wants to be super rich and date hot, crazy chicks. Because make no mistake, Amber Heard is a rolling dumpster fire. They're broken up now, but the point I'm making is whatever fuels him, we're blessed that the byproduct is probably going to benefit all of us. I can tell you, producer Stanton, he loves a Tesla. So one of the other things I wanted to talk about is that tomorrow is Betty White's 99th birthday. Now just let that sink in. 99. And she's like kicking ass. She said that she was not going to, she runs a mile a day, 1 mile, 1 mile. If that's not 99, I mean, she's so cute. And she used to do a show called The Pet Set that was all about pets, that was produced by her ex-husband. And people, I don't know how much you know about the Hollywood set, but everyone from Doris Day to Mary Tyler Moore, they love the animals in Hollywood. So the good news is that she's now working very hard to get The Pet Set re-released, and it's going to be on streaming on different platforms. She's super excited about that. She's going to celebrate her birthday. I want to get it specifics because I want to be able to share with you. She is in quarantine. All right. So yeah, so it's called The Pet Set. It was syndicated in the 1970s. It was produced by her late husband, Alan Ludden. Now, I believe Alan Ludden did this show, and I'm not remembering the name. Password. It was Password. How funny is that you had a show called Password before we had passwords? Because you weren't allowed to say the word. You had to say other words, and then people would say like artichoke, and then you go next word, and I love that word. And they would whisper it, the password is, and then so Alan Ludden was the host and producer, and Betty White was a frequent guest, and they got married and were married until his death. So for the 50-year anniversary, can you believe 1970 was 50 years ago? Yeah, almost 51, my friend. So they're going to re-release MPI Media Group, February 23rd, is going to re-release The Pet Set, and Betty White is so excited about it. And she says that she has these 2 ducks that show up at her house every day and that she feeds them. So there you have it. Our favorite. I mean, I know a lot of people love her from the Golden Girls. I mean, people love Betty White. If you have not seen her on the Comedy Central John Stamos roast from 2008, you want to see that. A, she drops the F-bomb, and B, she tongue kisses John Stamos within an inch of his life. And not to mention, being on Dancing with the Stars and recently. But the main thing I want to leave you with about Betty White is go back and watch pieces of the old Mary Tyler Moore show when she was Sue Ann Niven. She was just a minx. She was the original. I mean, talk about cougar. Sue Ann Niven was on the make, as we used to say in the 70s, hot to trot. When was the last time you heard hot to trot? I don't even know what that means anymore. It's just cute. All right. So we're rounding the bend here. And I can't even believe I was telling producer Stanton that I wasn't 100% sure that this was going to go for the full hour, because being at my mom's house, I thought at any moment the kid could bust in. My niece. I've taught her to make funny faces, and I've sugared her up, and I'm not entirely pleased with myself because I had to pay the price right up until we signed on. There was no controlling her. It was pretty fun. So the other thing that I want to talk about this week is that, I'm getting back to sort of routines and rituals. When we started with the 3:30 group, I used to say that we were going to create a rhythm from no rhythm because we didn't sort of have temp poles. And here we are almost 10 months into this. I got back from Australia March 17th. January 17th will be 10 months since I got home from Australia. And next week will be 10 months because I was home for a week before I started. I'm almost at show, I believe Friday will be show 300. This coming Friday will be show 300 that I've done in a row. Now, everything is an answer to a prayer. You just have to remember what you prayed. And evidently I prayed to get much better at social media. And sort of the last frontier for me was Instagram. I hadn't really mastered Instagram, and I'm still not great at it. But on Twitter and Instagram, there is a radio show / podcast, underground radio, U period, N period, G period. and it's about unsigned artists and college kids. And oddly enough, they put a poll on social media of people's favorite comedians, and these are very young people. Like it's UNG radio, and I was on there with a lot of much younger. I forget Farsid's last name, but the other people were like really young and really hip and really cool. And the fact that amongst this group of people, including college students, I'm considered one of the best comics of 2020 makes me laugh. But I think that's because of COVID, the pause for the cause. I almost never use the word COVID, but the fact that Scott Montoya, who produced all of my specials for Showtime, re-released a bunch of stuff. I'm getting young people, very young people, saying, I'm a 22-year-old Latina female, and I just saw you on Latin Divas or Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg and Latin Divas have been re-released on Amazon Prime. Right now, if you're an Amazon member, you can watch Snoop Dogg Presents the Bad Girls of Comedy on Amazon Prime. And interestingly, if you don't have Amazon, you can watch it for free on YouTube on LOL Flicks. But the point I'm making is, because people are looking for content and want to laugh, work that I did years ago is now getting revisited and given a lot of love. And I love it because it runs parallel to another story that I talked about recently. And I'm going to bring it back around again, which is, who would have ever guessed that the hottest show on Netflix, scripted, one of the top shows ever, if not the top one. I don't want to say, because again, I told you, if I don't know 100%, but I believe the article said that scripted, I think it's neck and neck with Tiger King, but Tiger King technically isn't scripted, is The Queen's Gambit, a show about chess. The book was written in the 80s. Scott Allen fought to buy the rights to it in 1993. He wasn't even an established entertainment veteran. He was a Scotch executive. He literally worked for Macallan Scotch. He was a Scotsman working for a Scotch company in Scotland. That's a tongue twister. And he bought the rights to a book that he thought was great, and has had, I think, 9 producers attached to it. He actually had Heath Ledger attached to direct and be a part of it before he died. It took him 27 years from the minute he fell in love with the material to get The Queen's Gambit on the air at the right place at the right time. Everything is an answer to a prayer. You just have to remember what you prayed. It's a journey. It takes time, boys and girls. Nothing cooks overnight. Nothing delicious anyway. It's a reason why balsamic vinegar is more delicious when it's from Modena and it's been around a long time, and you buy it at Sur La Table and it's so delicious that you can put it on ice cream. That being said, I've had more fun discovering you guys and revisiting things that I did. That if a tree falls in a forest and nobody hears it, there were so many things that I wrote and performed that made me happy, that didn't have hundreds of thousands of views that now do. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm asking you, because I believe in currency versus cash, because the cash is inevitable if you're in alignment. And Elon Musk is the absolute embodiment of that. But part of it, I think, is that doing this is show 36 or 37. I'm almost at 300, 330s. Doing something, mastering it, as Malcolm Gladwell says, with your 10,000 hours. Having quit my day job exactly the year that he bought The Queen's Gambit, 1993, I realize that I am comfortable now with my voice, not just my speaking voice, which I never cared for. And I talked about this a little bit yesterday because I was driving north listening to Sirius XM, and on Tom Petty radio, they played Bob Dylan's Hey Tambourine Man. And it sounded very different than Bob Dylan, because it was the 1965 Bob Dylan, Hey Tambourine Man. He was incredibly young. You could hear every word. It didn't sound like he had bees up his nose. It was just like, hey, Mr. Tambourine Man. But you could hear him, and it was perfect and was wonderful. It was actually the first song he wrote that was a chart topper. Not for him, for the Yardbirds, but then he recorded it himself. I'm pretty sure it was the Yardbirds. And I remember the song when I was a kid. It was beautiful. I can hear the guitar. Ding, 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 ding. I can hear it in my head, and the melody and the way the Yardbirds' voices all harmonize. Hey, Mr. Tambourine. It was a beautiful song. And then he did it himself. And it wasn't nearly as successful at that time. But the Yardbirds aren't around. And Bob Dylan has a Nobel Prize for literature. A Nobel Prize. He's considered a poet. That's a pretty big deal. Nobel Prize. But when you hear him, you can barely hear him. Because he's like, I saw him in concert in 2008 in San Diego at a baseball stadium. And it was the Bob Dylan that we know now. Well, you can't really, but he's fabulous. And I said that yesterday on the 3:30, that the more comfortable perhaps that we become with our own voices, with the message versus the tonality and the words, but the actual intention and inclination and the wisdom behind what time has brought to the material. The same jokes aren't the same for me. They're still funny, but I'm not the same girl that wrote them when I deliver them. And when you're comfortable with your voice, it's almost not important that people can hear the words as clearly, because they can feel the intention. And the same, a lot of people, and I said this yesterday, don't realize that Leonard Cohen wrote Hallelujah. It's a great song, and it's been covered by everyone, including the late, great Jeff Buckley. But Hallelujah was Leonard Cohen's song. And if you go back and listen to old Leonard Cohen, he had a regular voice. Like, it wasn't as high as Wayne Newton, but it was, he sounded like a regular dude. It took him a long time to find that everybody knows that, if he would have stayed the old Leonard Cohen, we would love his songs, and they're amazing. But he found his voice. And the irony of that is, a lot of people don't realize that Leonard Cohen went into a monastery. He became a monk on Mount Baldy, out the 10, near Palm Springs, and would take long vows of silence. One of the most respected voices wasn't used because he was speaking in another way. I mean, who would ever think of Leonard Cohen being silent? But that was another way he used his voice, was just being a monk and being of service. And he literally, there was some more superior holy man, and Leonard Cohen, who was already a very respected musical superstar, would take this guy's shoes off. I love documentaries, by the way, in case you're wondering, like, where does she get this stuff? I saw a great Leonard Cohen documentary about 2 months ago, and I've been saving it to kind of mesh it all together. Because believe it or not, the Bee Gees didn't figure out their whole falsetto coming together until their second act. If you go back and hear, I'm just trying to get a message, they weren't all in falsetto. Just Robin, not Maurice and Barry. And then they all discovered how to mesh it all. And that's when the magic happened, their second act in the late 70s. So it's been interesting, this pause for the cause, but I have found a different voice and a different way of doing things. And I've enjoyed my family. And I haven't gotten myself wrapped around the axle about things that I can't speak to because I wasn't there. I try to talk about things that I know or that I remember because I was passionate about them when they occurred. And, when I put this show together, I these are my notes. I'll show them to you. They're pretty brief because the show came together in my mind as I was driving north. I mean, it's a 6-hour drive. I wrote imagination, moderation, inclination, alignment, cumulative, and then I wrote Gabriel Fernandez and restaurant because I wanted very much to drill down how it's very likely that even if the woman didn't know specifically about Gabriel Fernandez or, watch the documentary, we are aware that COVID in some ways is bringing out sort of the worst in some people, that there is below the pandemic another epidemic of domestic violence and child abuse. And I don't say these things lightly, but being cooped up is bringing things to the surface that need to be dealt with on so many different levels. And just like this woman, and it's biblical, decided that she was her brother's keeper. One of the reasons that I wrote moderation, and I'll show you my notes, put it by the camera, moderation and kindness, is because I think in the days and weeks to come, as I was saying, sort of my habits have been interrupted, and we always just kind of shrug, and especially now because of the pause for the cause. I think I came up to my mother's for my niece's birthday, Halloween weekend, and then just a couple of weeks later I came back because my mother's hip replacement surgery. So my rhythm, which we talked about starting 10 months ago, a rhythm from no rhythm, within the no rhythm was disrupted even further. Tomorrow I have a Zoom show, private show. Monday, I go back to my rhythm, which is pretty much walking, writing, working out, aka returning to butt camp. But walking, remember when we were little kids, reading and writing and arithmetic. I have a rhythm of the 3 W's: writing and walking and working out. And that rhythm creates a foundation that I can stand on firmly to create more of what I want to present to you guys here and on Instagram. I might send you some pictures, Producer Stanton, for next Saturday, my befores. And so when I go back and say that everything's an answer to a prayer, this week, UNG Radio. See, I didn't forget. I didn't leave that thread on the ground. UNG Radio contacted me and said, would you be willing to do an Instagram live show? Not a Zoom, not a YouTube. It was the first time I was ever on Instagram Live. And it was fun. And a lot of people from the 3:30 evidently got alerted, just like I want you to hit the bell here so you'll get alerted, that I was live on Instagram. And I saw a lot of my regulars and friends and people that are not cross-platform, that are just on Instagram, that were excited that I was live, and they participated and commented on the interview. So I will do these things. I will do more simulcasts. I will be on other platforms. I will continue to find places to put the voice and the material that you've helped me so diligently by showing up, so I have a reason. And it's, I promise you, it's going to be a good year. Let's just write off the last few weeks and put them on 2020's tab. What do you say? Until next Saturday night, I'm asking you, if you have a friend that needs to be, uplifted or loved, or you think they could be a part of our tribe, please ask them to subscribe, like, and tap the bell. And you continue to show up, and I'm incredibly grateful. And the 3:30s know I'll be there tomorrow at 3:30. But until then, until tomorrow or next Saturday or wherever our paths cross, you know the drill. Love hard, forgive harder, and get as happy as you can, as fast as you can. Good night, guys.